So as we are in Agile conference, that means we all need to be agile. So first of all, please all stand up. I know you have been sitting for a while, so some yoga exercises maybe. Maybe you have your favorite, but maybe we just start with... yes, maybe some hands also involved. Maybe some tree, maybe someone can do... Okay, Britt, over to you. I did my part.
Hey, my name is Priit. Yeah, you may sit down. It was just...
oh, yes, sorry.
that, our story is about continuous improvement, which is much better with gamification. But first, in order to deliver it in that really high quality, we need to know more about your kind of background and what you do. And in this line of work, we usually recognize 3 types of people. First type of people who are related to agile transformation are the people with the money and the pain. And I would want to know how many of you actually are people with money. In that case, that there is a need for a change, and they say that it is going to be agile or something like that. And somebody has to pay for it. Is anybody among you who is going to pay for it? Nobody. None with money. So of course, the second group of people are the doers, or we also know them as victims, the people who should do it. So you are more like a victim types, or?
So who should?
Who? Yeah. Who? When your company decides to do agile, are you the? When you're not with the money, are you the people who are victimized? You should use it, yeah, or no? Like any indication, you're doers?
Raise your hand if
Raise
you
your hand
have
if you're
to
a doer.
be part of this. That someone tells you you should do Scrum, you should do Agile. Are you part of this group?
Oh.
There is a third group also.
Yeah, there is a third group which representative is Heldin, and I.
Yes, so I am the kind who kind of have to make it happen. So I am the one who force you and have to talk with the one who has the money. So do we have any people like me here? Yay! few, but good. Great.
And in order to continue, like, do you play computer games? How many of you play computer games with your friends? Online, team versus team, competitive team play, you know, League of Legends.
Maybe table games also? Anyone? Yeah. Nice. Mafia? No? Yeah.
Anything related to kind of, does gamification ring a bell? Have you heard of such a term? Yeah? A few of you? Making like a work more game-like? Excellent. At least it is not, yeah.
But how many of you actually use Scrum as a tool in everyday life? Okay.
So do we need to say what Scrum is before we start, or? We don't, yeah, okay, thanks.
Good, we like it.
Yeah. It's my turn, yeah?
Yes, it is.
My name is Priit. I drove 8 hours yesterday to get here. The alternative would have been 2 days with a plane from Tallinn. I don't know why this software tells me that it takes 2 days to fly over here, but only 8 hours to drive here. And my participation or experience related to Agile transformation started at 2005 when I worked for an Israeli gambling company called Playtech. And I oversaw the software deployment process of 34 data centers, software products from 1,000 engineers, and there were like 500 different release units being released monthly. And I had to standardize the input, how to get this deployment process faster and with better quality. And since then, I have never got back to write anything meaningful or do anything meaningful. Since then, I have always fixed some kind of process-related issues. and tortured people to do or work differently. Then, because of that work, I was deployed at Skype and fixed similar problems, server-side technology deployments at large scale, much bigger scale, like 50 million people simultaneously online, 250 million active users. Lots of moving parts. There was a transition part where landline calling was, or long-distance landline calling was routed through Skype infrastructure, and 25% of total land distance calling in the world went through that server infrastructure, which was supposed to be always up, never down. And then, luckily, Skype was purchased, and the new owner said that the way you work is not sustainable. This Agile at scale is the new way of working, and you have to now implement this instead of whatever you did before. And while doing these different kind of change programs, we realized that change is really hard, that people don't like it at all. The guys with the money wanted to do it cheap, they wanted to do it fast, and they wanted to be effective so they can kind of turn their business metrics into faster cycle time, more software produced at better quality with a same or even lesser amount of people involved. Then there are people like Heldin who have to do those changes or oversee some stuff in a bigger matrix kind of organizations that why don't they do Scrum as they're supposed to? Why aren't they motivated? My manager is going crazy, he's paying this money and they are not doing Scrum as they're supposed to. And then of course there is this sad third group who are being told to do Scrum, do this, do that. It is awesome, this Agile is awesome. And we always encountered these people and thought that how do we do this when we are told that you should change this and you should do that? How do we do it better? So yeah, at this point, I give it over to Heldin again when she can describe what situation she was in.
So when Priit said that, and also previous speakers about how long they have been in IT, then I have to say since 2001 I am a youth worker. I used to work with young people. Then I figured out that, hey, I get much more paid in IT, so, and the only difference it seems to be is that the boys are much older, which is better for me, plus the toys are more expensive, of course. I joined Agile Mafia since 2009, and as some of the people in my company know that I am also a nightmare of Princess developers. Is any of the Princess developers here also? Do you know who they are? They are like, I don't want to do this because of this and this and this, and I cannot do this and this and this. And they want special treatments. So this is what I'm not giving them, because I think everybody should be treated equally. I have been working with Big Bank for 1 year now. And since 1 year, we also started that transformation from whatever we were before to Agile. And just to let you know what was the state before. So when I joined, then we didn't really have any, like we had we had IT teams, but what we didn't have was that we didn't have any product. So they were randomly made up. We only had manual testing, and the testing was done by business side. And what the business side told me, actually they laughed over me when I went to talk with them and told that, you know, we should start doing things together. So they said, we have never got anything from you. And one of the reasons why they never got anything, or they got it like very small parts, was because it was, I think, how did you, Britt, describe it? It was like a service request style development.
No, business never talked to IT directly. There was just a big service desk and there were tickets, and the tickets didn't involve like support requests. There were like, develop me this, do that kind of tickets. This was the communication between business and IT.
So in every team we used Jira at that time already, so Jira Backlog was like full list of things. No one ever had time to actually go through them that fully. And then, of course, we had a culture, we call it HIPPO, which is highest paid person in room. So when HIPPO came in, then those things got done. And the other things didn't, obviously. And then 1 year ago, Agur Jõgi, who is our CTO, came along, saw all this mess and decided, okay, we need to change it. If we want to do something in IT, we need to change it really fast. And of course, he came from Skype also, and he had met some really good friends, which is one of them is Priit. So we called Priit for a help.
So at that point, or for your future kind of thing, if you are the pusher type who does those changes and you have this impression that everybody hates you for it, it's a lie. Once they end up in the same situation like you, they remember your name and call you up saying that, you know, I now need to do the same things you did to me and I need some help. So
can I say there is a line, because I think Lithuania is a Catholic country. I don't know how much do you know about the Bible, but there is a part in the Bible when it says that Christianity is a good smell for life and bad smell for death. And I think this same is with people like me and Priit and some of you also, that, you know, when we go to a company which wants to become agile, so people who understand agile, who want to change, who want the mindset to be changed, for them we are very good news, because they see, wow, something starts to change now, yay. And for them who don't really like the change, who don't understand the mindset, we are really bad smell, sadly.
I wouldn't describe it that drastic, but I tend to agree that every situation, usually in any company, when you go there and propose changes, there are lots of people in that company who benefit from the current status quo. Meaning that some want to change and say it's bad, but usually there are people who are really happy with the current situation as well. It's just a way of life. And the worst thing is when the first person you talk to regarding a change is actually the person who is the most satisfied with the current situation. So then you fail most probably. And to continue on this, that when Agur contacted us, we had just broken away from Microsoft, which was we broke off the Microsoft with a whole team. Because we didn't like Team Foundation server too much. And since I ran the whole services stack for Skype and Lync, which provided tools like continuous delivery, source code management, project management, and Skype used heavily Atlassian toolset. And this wasn't in compliance with what Microsoft wanted to achieve with Team Foundation server. And the whole team of people basically decided that we will establish our own shop. We leverage our own skills at excelling with Atlassian toolset, because we were able to spin off Atlassian toolset on for 2,000 engineers and 6,000 active customers with a single instance setup, not even the enterprise one. And we thought that nobody knows exactly how to do it, so we should kind of make use of it. Then Agur called us suddenly and said that I'm going to do some very bad stuff in Big Bang. Or naughty stuff is the right word. And with those changes, we also developed this gamification aspects. Naming somebody Yoda or Chuck Norris of development is a really powerful concept. And lots of gamification or how you motivate people to strive for the better are very personal level kind of thing, like salespeople achieve master of, grand master of development or Yoda status. But what we wanted to change was that we were interested in team dynamics. We thought that in Agile, the personal excellence is not as important as team competing the other team. So that was like our concept. And we also were very good with tools related to crunching huge amount of data. So with every change, we had to create a baseline saying that we don't care what this team or company is doing, we just want to see how their flow of work is going on. So we create a baseline of, we don't know any of those people, we just want to know how much work goes in, how much it stays in, what are their methods, how they crunch it through, and what goes out, based on data only. Whatever data we can get our hands on. So we used Excel, we used Tableau, we used ClickView, everything we connected to tools like Jira or DFS, pull the data out, analyzed, and say that I think this is broken, and I think based on that, this is how it's supposed to look, and we can gamify the path from that state to that state, and give some levels and achievements for the team to strive to for that change. So those were our concepts, and Agur came along, and we thought that now is the time. We will gamify it. We won't just tell people to do Scrum, we will make it really like a game, like a competition. So there.
So what happened after that with this 1 year? So where we are today is that, first of all, we started with product teams. And if you don't have product teams, I suggest you very strongly to go with them. Not all of our teams has yet part of the product teams, but this is something where we are aiming by the end of this year to have really self-sufficient teams. That the team itself decides how the product, together with product owner, of course, where the product is going, but also they are responsible of if something happens in live, they are the ones who will be called, like, you know, to fix it and put it back up, and all other things that happens in a product, it is up to them. Next thing what Bo in the first speaker was talking about, the business side. So we started to have a business backlog. So we could have a general overview what is actually going on in our company, because before we didn't have that overview. So basically before, all the very important business decisions regarding technology were decided by technical lead level. And they didn't have competency to decide from the business level. So now we said, okay, we actually want business people to help us to make those decisions. And of course, there is still long way to go. It's not perfect yet, but we are doing small steps to become better and better on this also. One other thing that what was the name of the guy? Lemmy was speaking just before us, was talking about basically competency leads, that someone who is helping others to become better. So this is something that we also established, and we really kind of tried to help people to have this mindset that this company is about learning, and we always want to learn new things, and also about this teaching, that everybody have their own skills that they want to teach others to also know. And this is something that yeah, we have changed so far. And but then we still have problems, because change is hard, as you may know. And we have lost a couple of people on the way who really don't want to change. I don't know, do you have people in your teams, or have had people in your teams where you really see that those people don't get the agile mindset and they are actually blockers? Yes. What do you do with those people? Fire. Yes. Yes, you do. There is actually another way also, because sometimes those people can be very useful somewhere else in a company. So I would say, first thing, find out if they could be more valuable some other part in a company, and we have had those changes as well. But the other way is actually you should get rid of them as soon as possible, because one rotten apple in a basket will basically make everything rotten around them also. And if you want to move on more quickly, more faster, this needs to happen. But also, when we talk about changes, I work right now with 75 people in our IT. We have 7 Scrum teams and few teams that use Kanban. There is only one me in this company, which means I am the only one who has very deep knowledge about Scrum and Agile. Everybody else are those who we help. For example, we have a Scrum Masters community. We help them to understand more about Agile and Scrum and also everyone else in the teams. But still, I cannot be in every team. I've tried it. It's not working. Priit is killing me because of this.
So you have noticed that all the people we asked about are there. Agur, the guy with the money, Heldin with the attention problem, and 75 victims. So the kind of the scene is set, so to speak.
Yes, and so I need help. And also the guy, Agur with the money, needs it because he wants that everyone will improve and they would improve faster. So what to do about it? And then, of course, Priit and his company had this great idea about the gamification game. And maybe you want
Scrum
to talk
game.
About Scrum game, yes. Maybe you want to talk about it then.
When you play around with data, there are like some things you can do with data regarding process and some things you can't. Luckily, when there is a Scrum at scale implementation and there is like cross-location setups involved, then you can't really do Scrum with those stickies only. You have to have some digital form of information to be exchanged. Some cross-located team members want to participate. So you have to come up with something like Jira Agile or version 1 or Rally to do this, this type of product development. And the second thing about this is that when you think how Scrum works, you cannot digitalize everything. There are only a few things that you can detect based on data. And so we decided to divide it into 4 areas, which we can easily detect. First of all, what we wanted to look at was team setup, meaning that we assume that a Scrum team has some separation of roles which are detectable based on data. Data moves can indicate what kind of work any people in the team are doing. So we know that there should be a product owner. So based on the data, we would assume that product owner is a person who very often creates new backlog items. This should also be the person who very often orders them around, creates a new item, raises it in the top of the backlog, for example. So there are similar kind of actions you would assume what product owner does when he or she comes to this tool. Similar with a Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is the guardian of the process. Every aspect what you see there, what you can do in terms of starting a sprint, closing a sprint, doing something with burn downs, velocity, you would assume that these kind of checks are usually done by a Scrum Master who just wants to kind of keep the process intact. And there are also people who are doers. There are people who complete tasks in the sprint. So all these leave these workload marks in the system, which we can pick up and analyze and see that we think this person is a product owner, this person is a Scrum Master, these are the team. And then when you want to do the team setup check, we assume that good teams are those who have separation of roles, meaning that their pattern is pretty clear, that there is a Scrum Master. If there isn't a Scrum Master, then it's not that good setup. Yeah? When there is a product owner, the team usually knows what to do next. When there is no pattern that somebody is clearly filling that role, that's a problem. Third option, that there are like, you assume that in order to have a forecastable velocity, useful velocity for your estimating how fast you're moving, then you need a dedicated team, locked resources. Yeah? So when you see that there are people who do lots of stuff in multiple projects, that's an anti-pattern again. So there are like lots of stuff you can check just based on data, whether the Scrum team setup is actually optimum or not.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to also show you some of the pictures that are from this product and also connected to our own teams.
we had to scratch some of the stuff up. I understand that there are like business delicate teams or new products which haven't yet released on it.
So how many of you know what Big Bang is? Have you heard this kind of bank? None of you. 1, yay, 2, 3. Okay, some people have. So we are international bank, also in Lithuania. We are focusing on mostly consumer loans. We also have hire purchase, which is when you want to, for example, buy a furniture, but you cannot afford it to buy it all at once. So you can get this money and pay a little bit back to us. And as you can see, we do have some teams. Which one it is that I have to push? Just in case I don't do it. So as you can see, we have IP services as a team. Not a good thing. We want to change it. But yeah, so this is our teams, and this is a Scrum game leaderboard. As you can see, the first 2 teams, there is very similar points. So basically, when we started to use this game, first thing that we implemented was estimation of backlog have to be in order, and top of the backlog has to be estimated also. And the first day we implemented it, guess what happened the second day? All backlogs were in order very quickly, because they started to understand, they started to actually focusing also on details, not just about, oh, this is Scrum, this is Agile, this is something that how I need to do my work, but they really started to understand what's there kind of around it or behind it. First time when we showed them the score, one of the first questions that came out was that we don't believe this data. Like, is this data really trustable? And I
have a side mark that everybody who understood that in order to score points in that section, you had to raise all the estimated stuff in the top of the backlog. It was all fine. But what they didn't realize that it also analyzes who does this. So we always assume that this person is the product owner who does that. So we also reported who's the product owner, and that really confused them, because based on that data, in a lot of cases, team really tried to kind of just do it what product owners should have done. Yeah.
So this is the second one that shows the separation of roles. And as you can see, there is some things that still need to be developed. That's why there is a Scrum Master missing, because, yeah, some of the things. But basically, you can see that some of those says, okay, some say that PO equals Scrum Master. Product owner equals Scrum Master, which means that those roles are not separatable.
No, the same person does them.
Yes.
But they should be different people, because they are kind of counterweighting each other, so to speak. One is the pusher and the other is the kind of the keeper of order and the team coach. Mm-hmm. But when you have product owner doing the Scrum Master's job, product owner is incentivized only to do these parts. It's really skewed the product towards whatever product owner needs to do. And the kind of the Scrum itself becomes much more kind of different, and usually from the previous slide, previous presenter, these refactoring issues and all these kind of work never gets done scaling, because product owner eventually doesn't care about those things.
And basically, if you look at this, for me, as the one who should coach the teams, it's very visible where I should go and whom I should help. And some teams I can say, okay, you are good with this. Some I can see, like, for example, reporting and analysis and big data. This team actually needs my help very quickly, because they haven't even improved over the time. Here you can see is, we don't have slide for this, but there is dedicated team. Here is actual names also that are showing who is doing, if you look only the data from Jira, who is doing the product owner work. So basically what have came up that is that collaboration team, they have a product owner, but the actual data shows that it's someone else. And also the same goes to Scrum Master, and also it shows the team. So we used to have problem that people come inside the sprint and change the tickets, the stories.
Scope changes.
And do the scope changes also. So this same data here shows also who is actually part of the team. Like for example, it might be that there is an API service team, but the team members include someone from collaboration team, which is also very bad, and it's very easy to notice, and we can do changes by this. I go back here. So we do every month a meeting in the end of every month, and then we give out also a prize for the winner who is winning. And when we came out with the points and who is winning, actually, as I said before, people started to be really curious about how this Scrum actually works. Because before they could easily be on their comfort zone, doing something on their team, and because there was only me, then it's not enough time for me to go and check what's actually going on the teams. Britt before said about scope changes. Scope changes, I believe, is here, under sprinting.
Each of those sections
here.
Not just kind of one check, but there is a combination, very atomic check, and then checks build up more complex check and indexing, so that we could kind of try not also to detect who is doing what, but we also try to find people who try to game the game, so to speak, who just want to cheat it. And we don't show it here, but we report it so we can talk to them in private.
So basically when people ask, so why this team is winning this team, and there is only very little, like 1 point basically, then if I look at the data, it's very clear here, it shows about scope changes, that this team had also had some scope changes, but much less than this team. And also in this team, product owner, the actual product owner didn't equal the product owner that Jira told us, that who is doing the product owner job. So it's very easy to give feedback for the team also that, hey, this is happening because of this and that. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, well, regarding the sprinting, we are also looking, for example, this cadence discipline, which is a very easy thing to slip when you start doing this. That people say that I started the sprint and I ended the sprint, and this is what I intend to do it, but it shows in real life that they are actually secretly trying to extend the duration of the sprint so that they can complete a few more stories which they thought that almost got done. But what they don't realize that if you do that, your velocity estimate is inaccurate, and you are jeopardizing the whole forecast on the roadmap based on that. So we started to look for these kind of patterns who are trying to stretch the sprint length, others who are trying to, there was another interesting pattern that we discovered, that team sometimes leaves a few days between the sprints, which is also not okay. I don't know what they're doing there, but at least Heldin then can do something about it. We report that these teams do it. And regarding the planning, we also think that it is important to know that when the sprint starts, that what work you bring into sprints actually comes from the backlog, not that on the top of the backlog, not from random places in the backlog, which means that the product owner again is very lazy, or they just make up all the stories one night before the sprint planning happens. We look at those patterns over time, and we want to see that usually we know that there are drops of items in the backlog, so we know that that has to be the start of the sprint. Then we look at the correlating events, whether the newly added items were like added last night, how was the kind of the dots in a kind of correlation, when were the items added, when were they raised in the top of the backlog, when did it happen. And so we decide whether this is like kind of a normal behavior, or it is something that we need to report to Heldin that go take a look what is going on there.
Why it's also good for me is that before I used to be the bad girl, always going to the team and telling you do this bad, this bad, this bad. And they, even if I try to do it very nice way, people actually take very many things very personally, especially if you have a bunch of developer princesses around you. You cannot really say things like, you know, change it, and where you have to be
You're
very
really bad at this.
Yes, you have to be very delicate. So this game actually helps me a lot of this also, because this is actual data, because if I go to them, my arguments are also based on data. But here I can actually show them, this is your data, this is why you need to change, or this is what needs to be changed. And one other thing I remembered, actually some people, as I said, didn't believe, they were questioning is this data correct, but other people actually came to me and said like, Heldin, you know, we had this change in our team, that's why we are losing points, but this change was wanted because of this and that. Can you kind of hack the game so we won't lose our points? And I said like, no, it is like it is indicator. It shows you what the temperature is, basically. So if you as a team decide that the temperature for this moment will go down, this will show you this. And we actually not going to change it. But this is not it. We actually need more. So, Priit, what's coming next?
Yeah, we do services and product development in parallel, because we kind of go into our client's shop and we try to kind of establish a very rapid snapshot on what is the state of their process and how they are doing their Agile, etc. And then if they are doing Scrum, we're fine. We can redeploy the same game. We'll say that use this in order to drive it. For us, it gives the opportunity to do the same work with much fewer people. That is why we wanted to have this. And we thought that conventional consultancy actually needs tools like that in order to elevate to the next level. But immediately when we started off with that, I said that, okay, you have the Scrum, but I also have Bamboo, I have Slash. I have the whole stack of Atlassian set. Why don't you correlate the events? Why don't you mesh the old data there? And I want to see how this end-to-end cycle time works. I said, yes, we can do that, but we only can build upon it. So I guess that the next thing is to actually stretch the process in terms of we want to see a connection to the live environment, how they actually, when there was this term used that potentially shippable, we really can check based on data, is it really shippable? So even when the team says to Heldin that it's shippable, we can show whether it really is shippable or not. So we want to go that end and then come to the front end and say that we also want to see how good the product owners are in terms of working with their team to produce requirements and how do they manage the roadmap. So we want to connect it wider. So we have to add more tools to this and to the cross-correlation of data in order to add more value to people who are in charge of change and also people with money who want to see what's the cycle time, how much I'm bursting out from my organization. And for us, we want to do all this with very few people instead of many consultants. This is one thing. Secondly, we know that there are more tools on the market that are not Atlassian tools. So usually when we decide something, we like to look at Gartner and Forrester research papers regarding how they predict future. And we look at their innovator and market leader corner. And then we decide whether we implement it on version 1, do we do it on Jenkins, do we do it on Bamboo only? And it also depends on what our clients want from us. And we try to do stuff that are reusable later on in the future, that we don't really do things that are one-offs, meaning that only this client needs this tool from 90s to be included. We don't want to include any software from 90s into this check. And then we have the process expansion, we have the tooling expansion. We want it to be able that we don't come at all to anybody's office. We put it up in the cloud. You have your kind of Jira or Atlassian stack running in the cloud. Why don't you just plug it in there and look what our tool tells you? Like, you can choose the amount of projects you want to include into that test, and it just shows you the benchmark saying that we think that your quality of delivery is like that. And do you want to have a game that takes it to the next level and play it for a year or so? So those are like in our backyard, we have to play around with these things in order to decide, do we scale processes wider? Do we add more tools? Do we put it in cloud and everybody can play with this? So yeah, we haven't decided yet.
So when we started with the question about to do you play games? So for me, I think this thing should come really as a game, that there's different levels, that you can get to the next level when first level is actually completed, and you can say, yay, I've done this, I'm basic in Scrum, for example, and then I can start doing Kanban on top of it if it's relevant for me. But the other thing is that we really do need help from other parts. Like, for example, as Bo was speaking here first, product management. We need to kind of have a way how to help them also. And I'm really looking forward how the game can help us there also. So conclusion.
Yeah, that is the hard part. We started with those 3 user groups: the guy with the money, the person with the problem, and the victims. And for each of them, it has to have something that resonates, that you can do these changes thanks to gamification. It really helps to drive the engagement of the victims, the doers. That people do not take change, that they still find it is disruptive, but you know that when you disrupt people, they really want to get back to some kind of feeling of safety or kind of stability, because you kind of you threaten them with your change. And this game is kind of giving you some way out, or you kind of it is kind of laying you the path that this is how you get out of this situation. I'll start doing this, I get the points, Heldin is happy with me, maybe the future is not so bad after all. And then the guys who are always struggling, that I have those agile coaches in my organization, they want to do the change, but they don't know what to change. They don't know what to do, in what order, what is broken, what is the most broken piece in my organization. So this is the heat map for Heldin, that Heldin can look at this and say that I think everything is broken, it doesn't matter where I start. Or I think that there is a thing that is more broken which I should do first. And then the guy who pays for all the fun and says that I don't understand where this effort is going. I don't understand why this is not improving, and I don't see how my company's cycle time and bandwidth gets better thanks to this. So the concept or the conclusion of this, that this gamified approach has some secret sauce to all those kind of user groups, as it appears. Luckily for us, of course.
Yes. So I would say this game helps me a lot. And if you have similar troubles that I described before, then I think this is actually one of the ways that you can try and help out, and you can come and ask me later what other troubles and wins we have had with this. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you are more interested, we just listed out things that you can Google. And thank you.
It's time for questions. One hand over there.
Yeah, hi. I have a question. Actually, doesn't it get demotivational when one of the teams is actually on top and the other is really lagging behind, kind of loser team and winner team, especially when you need to move the team members around as well?
Yes, I think it would. But the thing is that, for example, those teams that we had the lower position at the moments, they were the newest teams. So they actually, this is one of the things that they get lower points because we know that they are actually in the beginning of the Scrum. And I think in the future, Britt...
No, I would add that in order to keep this engaging, we have this approach which we divide things into seasons, which are basically months. That you have this total score, and there is no way around it. If you have done it for longer time, you have earned more points. But for younger teams, you can still measure up in terms of short-term seasonal fights, meaning that gives you still the engagement. But if you are a team that is an old team still on the bottom of the list and never getting a higher on the seasonal fights as well, then Heldin should kind of go take a look, and maybe it is okay that they are demotivated. Maybe there is something else. It is not just the game is more like an indicator to this. Yeah.
But there is, there is one thing that we give out monthly, kind of like, you know, this team won, but then there is also those badges that they can win. So basically, I think this is this motivational part, that they can actually develop much faster. And we have noticed that when team has been working using Scrum before, and then when we form newer teams, they actually become, like they get points very, very quickly, because they already know the system. They just have to kind of live in to this new team, and then they start scoring pretty quickly.
And another question is, how long it's been running? Is it kind of subsiding, the interest on this kind of? Usually it happens like it's really interesting in the beginning, but then it becomes like...
Yeah, I would say it's still a kind of testing phase.
This game which we have screenshots here, when was it first deployed? In June? It started in June, but in order to do the work, because we have worked there for a year, we did ad hoc analysis, because we did just the UI and fed the data in through, for example, Excel data sheets. We just emulated the game, so that you have to do those experiments, because otherwise you get it all wrong when you kind of, how to say, like, you do it first thing, you implement it as is, and then you have to change your product. It is better to do data emulation based on Excel and Tableau and tools like that connected, or even Microsoft SQL Server data warehouse. We used that in Skype because it came free from Microsoft, to actually analyze what is going on in Jira and what are the levels we would want them to move. Yeah. But because productizing it is expensive, and you have to be crystal clear that this is really a valuable implementation and you don't have to change the other day.
Thank you.
I think one of the other things is, the question back to you is that if you are playing online game and you're not winning, is it demotivating?
Yeah, you change the game.
Can you provide more information about the team, about the age groups?
So they have a development job at the retirement home. Yeah, they are very old people. No, I'm kidding.
I would say similar age as people here.
Yeah. It's
yes, plus minus 5 maybe.
Because I'm 32 and sorry I'm not playing any games. And trying to understand how other age groups will apply to
I believe then you need to improve yourself. Start playing games.
That is another thing, that you are a member of a team and other team members take a notice that you are bringing their score down. So it is not the game's fault that they will take some action.
So there comes blame game even.
Yeah, they might even turn up at stand-up and saying that I don't want to name any names, but this guy has caused us to drop on that.
Just 1 second.
What if I like to play more cooperative games, not competitive games? What's for me in it?
I don't know, it might be related to achieving something on the roadmap, but this might be an interesting concept, yeah. But it needs this foundation to be built first, that you have the granular pieces, and then you can connect it to the kind of the bigger business backlog, and then say that this is collaborative win when you get the new kind of big bang feature out in collaboration with marketing and everything. But it is possible database, but you cannot go straight up there. You have to build the blocks in between in order to collect data from portfolio systems. Then maybe your company goals and objectives need to be connected to it. I don't know. It's like, it is a very good mental exercise though, how to design that, and we can test it on Excel, of course, or something which is really easy to test on.
I think, Britt, before we also discussed this, that how many teams you need to have to actually play this game. And I think already with one team you can do, and on that case it is not...
Yeah, it is not a competition then, but it is more like it helps the team to learn it, yeah?
And I think also you can kind of plan things, and you can think ahead, like how do you really get done with this kind of part of the game.
This is part of my ambitions though, that actually you can agree to compare your process data in obfuscated manner or measure up on others in the system, which you don't see, but you say that I'm an engineering team in banking, and I want to know how other banking sector teams are doing at Scrum. How do I measure up at this level? So basically, you don't see who those teams are, but theoretically, you are then part of this benchmarking pool, and you can say that at that time, in Eastern Europe, most of the Scrum practicing banks were at that level, but I'm down here. There is like, I don't know what happened, what went wrong here. And so you can kind of have your own team level measured up on industry standards as well, if you want to. Assuming that it becomes an industry standard, that is our ambition, of course.
So I believe it's on the roadmap of your product.
Of course, yeah. No, it's more like a vision. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I had like a last question. Maybe you can reveal what's going to be next with your product, where you're going.
Well, we are in this, as we do this consultancy part as well, we are now negotiating contracts for the 2016, and we want to do some stuff in Western Europe so we can kind of travel more out of politics. And based on these negotiations, we may change around what order, what are we going to implement to those clients who agree to work with us. Yeah.
So I believe they're supposed to have the same rules like...
Yeah.
It's general Scrum rules. It's basically, if you have read Scrum Guide, so those rules are applied on this game. So it's, I think some things are kind of negotiable, or kind of, like for example, how many things in top of the backlog should be estimated. Scrum Guide doesn't tell you this, but then it's like common sense. What do you think is actually important? How many things, how much you should think ahead?
Mm-hmm. And these discussions are like a negotiation, meaning that they have a problem which we can resolve theoretically, but we have ambition to develop game further. So we are negotiating this like mutually, like you are in really interesting business, we want to take a look, you have those problems, but we want to develop some bits of the game in the process as well. So these kind of negotiations are currently ongoing.
Super. Okay, I believe we ran out of questions, and thank you for your presentation. And once again, I want to ask you our feedback. Thumbs up? I believe it's almost 99.99. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I learned a special word in Lithuanian, and I'm so sad that I couldn't use it. It's labanaktas. Need to learn another word.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our gifts from our Agile Lithuania.
Thank you.
Thank you.